Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Sex on the Table, the podcast aimed at creating a healthy blueprint for millennial relationships. I'm your host, MoAndra Johnson, marriage and family therapist, and joining me today is a special guest, my sister friend, McKenzie Winchester, marriage and family therapist as well. Today, we'll be talking about events across the nation as it pertains to systemic injustices in the Black community. Okay, so guys, you may have recently checked out on our page that we've been doing Being Black in America series. And basically, that's just been a whole collage of videos from different individuals that are Black, and they're sharing their experiences on what being Black in America means to them and what they're feeling during this time. So, Mackenzie, before we dive in, I'm gonna do a check-in with you. How are you feeling about everything, sis?
Girl, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
You want to stay informed, keep up. I've been learning so much, I feel like, just about
Yeah.
cases I never heard about or things like that. But then it can be very overwhelming and kind of feel like you don't have an outlet sometimes, like you just keep getting mad. It's like, what are you going to do about it? So I've just been balancing between that, you know what I mean? Trying to keep myself informed and be a part of it, but also take some time for self-care and stuff. How are you, sis?
I'm good. I'm in Atlanta right now, so it's like being downtown and like seeing basically the aftermath of a lot of stuff, and then consistently seeing like protesters and stuff. I know I've been on the phone with you and been like, sis, look, like it just feels really surreal. You were saying like a lot of people are struggling to like find that balance, and then like this could has any of these killings like could easily have been me or you
Right.
or anybody that we know or that like we have associates with. So it's just like I see myself in everything that's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So, but let's get into some of these, systemic injustices. There's been like a lot of talk about people fighting for more, right? So we were all in the house pinned up over Corona, and we saw like kind of like the fall of healthcare, and kind of like the holes that we have in our systems.
Right.
But more so than just like police brutality, like Black communities have lacking education, lacking healthcare, like
Right.
there's like lacking food and nutrition sources. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So people are really out here just trying to get change overall.
Right.
So what do you think about first, like the police brutality?
Not surprised,
Of
obviously.
course. I mean, it's been happening forever.
Right. And it's a system honestly created to do exactly what they're doing. We're just watching it now. We're just seeing it now. We're seeing it on video more. Um, I mean, it's a mess. It's hard to sit here and watch what we already know, but I think to be seeing them kind of just do what we're already trying to draw awareness to, they're just showing us what we've been trying to, what we've been screaming for years. And a part of me is glad, you know what I mean, that it's opening up a lot of people's eyes to like what we experience every single day. But at the same time, it's hard. It's hard to see such an abuse of power, so much like supremacy being in front of your face all day, watching it play out in a system that quote unquote supposed to protect you, but clearly wasn't put in place to protect us in any way. So it's a mess.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I just think about like everybody's mental health and like seeing these things play out in front of you. It's one thing to know, like, growing up, we have these certain codes, right? So there's certain things that you just learn not to do.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I learned when the police pulls me over, like, make sure your hands are in visible sight. Like, don't ever turn your back and run.
Right.
Like stuff like that. But to figure out that like this system is like blatantly like we've just with the protest alone, we've seen them like hurting so many people.
Yeah.
And I know that like people are, antagonizing them and throwing stuff at them, but like, back to back nationwide, literally seeing it. And so everything that we've been taught, like as children, and how to like protect ourselves and like just be cautious so we can get to like old age is like literally playing out. That's crazy to me.
Right. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking like it's been having me thinking like, what do you do now? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do?
Mhm.
You stay silent, you get hurt. You put your hands up, you get hurt. I mean, they're tear gassing people that aren't even doing anything, that aren't resisting. So we get told all these things, and it feels like they're getting uprooted every day. So it's like, what do you do when you get pulled over now? And
Yeah.
especially too, like, what do you do as a black man versus a black woman? And it's a mess. I agree. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot more. Like, what do you do now, especially during this heightened time? Like, they're dragging people out of cars. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Right. So I guess like how do we protect ourselves?
Right. And
I
how
know they have Go ahead.
I'm thinking too, like, how do you re-trust this system? Like, obviously, this is not going to end. Like, we started something that pray doesn't end, but we are going to have to go back to some type of something. And so I'm wondering what does happen when we make regular calls now. You know what I mean? Like, the climate is different. So I'm interested
Right.
to see how, when we go back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is, how trusting people are going to be. Are people going to be hesitant to call the police for things now? Like, what's going to
Right.
happen?
Yeah. The scary part for me, Mackenzie, is like so the other day I was doing research, right? And recall. And
Hmm.
then like seeing like from 1816, like, how everything started in the transatlantic slave trade, and then looking into like the 1800s and the 1900s, and now and Mackenzie, like nothing really changed.
Hmm.
Like there was subtle changes. Okay, we went from slavery to Jim Crow. We went from like, being in shackles to being separated, and then fighting for our freedom and the right to vote and getting that. But we've done all of that, and now we're in the 20s, or we're in 2020,
Right.
and these things are just playing out in different, not even different ways, but a little bit different.
Hmm.
And that's just like, wow,
Yeah,
decades, 401 years.
I agree. And it's sad to me that people are just now, I don't want to say our people, maybe other people are beginning to see it now because it's not segregation in the way it is. We don't have separate water fountains, but we also don't have the same access to healthcare, the same access
Right.
to housing, the same access to education. So what's the difference? You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
difference, like you said, it's just it pans out in different ways, which is crazy.
Yeah. Systemic injustice that me and you see often, like working with the community and being therapists, is injustices in education
Mhm.
in the Black community. So these kids end up like falling back or like having gaps in their learning, and it's just like a perpetuating system that keeps on happening, over and over and over again.
Agreed, yeah. And I'm as you're talking, I'm thinking of that bad narrative that comes from
Hmm.
schools, instead of taking time to learn how other children learn or understand that children, you might have one kid who comes from over here and then another kid that doesn't have the same access. So they're not going to learn the same. They're not going to
Right.
they're not going to be taught the same. And so then one of them becomes bad their whole lives. And then they carry that. A lot of Black men carry that, especially of
Hmm.
this bad child or this, he has problems, all this kind of stuff too that I'm thinking of that is just ridiculous just from
Yeah.
parity.
Yeah. And even like the school to prison pipeline
Right,
in urban communities, and like have these kids sent out of the classroom, or their learning being like hindered because nobody's just giving them a little bit of attention.
right.
So sad.
And
Um, go ahead, sis.
I was thinking, I think it's, as we're talking about like systematic things, it's not, the curriculum's not, is a
Oh my
part
gosh.
of
Right?
education. Like, I'm not an education major, but I can't foresee that a lot of universities, and it's a lot of these young white teachers that unfortunately sometimes do the work, and they're not receiving education, and they get put in these urban communities and I don't know, you know what I mean? How to
Yeah.
adjust to what life is like, and it's a lot of like, they just need, if they would just care a little bit more, whatever. But it's like, from the minute they wake up to the minute they leave that school, so many different systems and things are working against them the entire day,
Right.
from
Yeah.
technology to their healthcare to the food to where they lay their heads. Like, so
Mhm.
I think it just kind of speaks to what we've been talking about, where it's just so much bigger than us. And we can throw all these teachers in there, but they're not being taught about what are some of these things that kids can go through. It's pointless.
Right. So that like the same thing for like I would say for the reform for police brutality. Same thing comes here. There needs to be reform in trainings for teachers in urban communities or handling special, children, or just giving that extra education. Because even when you think about these children in the urban communities, their parents, people are working their butt off just to make minimum wage.
Right.
And nobody, and like, sadly, a parent may not have that time to pour into like little Johnny's education, but the teachers are also not, holding the ball up. So what happens to him?
Read, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that even okay, so that's like on, let's say, like elementary school, middle school level. And I think that once you get to the like collegiate level, like for me, I went to HBCU.
Mhm.
And so like my education there and like the things I learned there, like a lot of times they say like knowledge is power, but really like being exposed to like my history and the truths about it and like where I came from, and then ultimately helping me figure out like my place in this world.
Right. And
Um,
as you're saying that, I'm thinking, just, I mean, I don't know statistically how better we've gotten with Black kids going to school. I don't know,
mhm,
like going to college and the rates of that. But
mhm,
just thinking about some of the kids that don't get that opportunity, that don't get the opportunity. Because yeah, I agree. For me, high school, I went to a all white high school, and there was 3 Black people in my grade. So
mhm,
going to college, I did go to a PWI, but found a Black community, and it was
right,
the first time for me, like, oh my God, okay, I took like African American studies, and just was exposed to so much more. And just
mhm,
imagining some people that don't might not get that opportunity to ever feel connected or to learn or to do those things. It's
yeah.
real.
And then just kind of mold you into like your place in society or how you feel ultimately as about a black person. I know a lot of time in school we talk about people's sense of self,
Right,
and the different components that make you who you are. And that could be something that could be like a real hindrance or something that could somebody could struggle with because they've always been in these oppressive systems and never had anybody to relate to.
right.
But Mackenzie, I want to switch gears a little bit. Let's get into, so I talked about like the collegiate level, and we personally had experiences while obtaining our master's program, our master's degrees for marriage and family therapy. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Mhm.
Where do you want to start, sis?
I don't know. I guess just what came to my head, like the first thought is just that it continues to happen. You know what I mean? From kindergarten
Right.
through
Mm,
to grad school, we're still dealing with stuff. To
mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in my experience, this has been the most um in my face experience I've ever had. I think in
Okay.
other experiences, it's been a lot of microaggressions and,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, not
Well, McKenzie, let me stop you right there really quick. For people that don't know, what are microaggressions? Because you may have been experiencing this as somebody being Black in America and not even knew what it was called.
right. So I don't have the
Yeah, give us your definition, sis.
on the proper definition, but they're kind of like small subliminal comments, messages, behaviors, facial expressions, reactions that kind of perpetrate racism or I don't know. I don't want to say phobia, but you know what I mean. Just
Yeah. If I'm in a store and that shop owner is following me around.
right, or someone getting out of an elevator or clutching their purse, or we all get the comments about our hair and can I touch it, and
Hmm.
different things like that that are just subtle expressions of racism strong, but pretty much.
But continue. I did cut in.
Yes, yes. But like I was saying, I don't think we've ever talked about whether or not this was your most blatant experience either in our program, but
Mhm.
yeah, just thinking how it continues. I mean, we know it, it's in the workplace, it never stops, but I think this is the most, which I can say I'm privileged to have to say that I've been smacked in the face with like, oh, okay, like, got it.
Yeah. I wouldn't say. I think my most blatant experience was a time in middle school. When I was supposed to be going into this gifted program, and I had a group of teachers that were like, cheering me on. And one of my favorite teachers was my history teacher, and I was a pretty good student in her class. Like, she seemed to like me. And because the group of students wrote me this recommendation letter, I opened hers because I didn't need it.
Mm.
And it was like absolutely outright switch up.
Wow.
And my mom took me onto a board of the some of the Black teachers and asked them like, what could this possibly be about? And from what she tried to explain to me, because I was so young, it was just like, it's nothing that you did. Like, you're not a bad student. Like, that's as best as she could explain it to me.
Mm.
Um, and from there, like, I just feel like, dang, like, I'm not good enough to get into this gifted program by her thoughts, even though I never submitted that recommendation from her.
Wow.
So yeah, and that was like in middle school, girl. But in grad school,
Mm.
it was so there was a situation that me and you were both a part of, and I think that a lot of times, like, even when it comes to things like this, right, McKenzie, like trying to say, like, okay, this was downright racism is hard for me, but like that was my experience, right?
Right.
And so I don't even really know what to call it. And like it just seems really fuzzy, but it didn't feel good.
Mhm.
And it was basically just having like a professor um guess on one of my clients' race before even explaining what they were, just based off of certain demographics I gave about them. And then when we talk about, being safer, like who can protect you or who's around you to advocate, like I think there was one professor that we went to, and she was like, "Whatever you guys need, whatever, wherever you need to take it to, like wherever it needs to go, this is unacceptable and it should not
Right.
happen." And I don't know about you, sis, but even I feel like we should have took it further. Like I feel like, especially with what's going on now and seeing people like literally push the envelope on everything and not taking anything for like being satisfied with anything. Like I feel like we should have took it all the way to the higher ups.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But I didn't feel comfortable at that time though.
I agree. It didn't feel comfortable. It felt very invalidated. You don't want to seem, of course, like that angry Black person that's shaking things,
Right.
starting problems. And to be
'Cause
honest,
that's another stereotype.
we had been going through, at least I had, other forms of microaggressions, other things that were making me feel uncomfortable, that sometimes you just get in a mindset where you're like, I just want to get out of here. Like,
Right. You shut down.
yeah, is kind of where I went. But I agree in just being empowered now, through everything of seeing like what speaking up can actually really do.
Right.
I agree, girl. We could have owned the university. Hello, but
Hello. But I mean, okay, let's even talk about the fact that before our voices were heard, literally this year, up in when we were about to graduate, that we had a diversity auditor come into a classroom with our director and hear us out.
right,
What are the things that you guys are experiencing? What has been your experience in this program? What are the microaggressions? And let's start making some type of changes.
right.
And that didn't happen until like a year after. Maybe was it 2 years, Mackenzie?
Yeah, almost. Like
Yeah.
not too shy away from 2 years.
And that, I mean, we did see change before leaving.
But something I'm even thinking about as we're hearing that is like, why does it always have to be the event? It has to be an event that causes,
Right. The straw to break some camel's back, like George Floyd,
right? When
when there's literally been people.
we had been speaking, at least, I mean, I think all of us at some point, there was about
Said
five
something.
of us, five women of
Yeah.
color program, spoke up just on how we felt in the environment alone. And
Right.
which is not easy. It's not easy. And especially, we were in a small cohort of 21 people. So, I mean, these are people you look at every single day. So, I felt like, at least on my end, I was very vocal about multiple times that even
Yeah.
if the environment alone, oh, here's a blatant, event that, oh my God, maybe we could get, in trouble for or backfire for, that caused them to get the ball rolling, which is very frustrating
hmm
and validating because there was
Right.
problems from the minute we sat down at orientation. So it's a mess.
Okay. And so I want to still stay in the with systemic injustice and be within the school system. But I want to talk a little bit about black athletes.
Mm.
And I've never been a black. Well, no, I played soccer for a little bit, but I still wouldn't consider myself a black student athlete.
Great.
Girl, shut up. But I mean, these athletes go through some things too.
Yeah.
And one thing that kind of like puts it at a forefront for me is I have a cousin that plays for women. She plays women's basketball in Germany. And even hearing her teammates call her and people that she went, through different steps of basketball with, and they're all kind of like outraged. I mean, these girls are like, they're playing, they may be scouted or some are in women's basketball in other countries or they're coaches of different college teams
Mhm.
and the injustice that they feel, but also being so afraid to speak out because they haven't secured their positions in WNBA or wherever their dreams may be.
Right.
And how crazy is that, Mackenzie, that like we talked a little bit about fear even with us, but like, with these black athletes, your voice is so silenced. And I think a lot of us as black people in America, our voice is often silenced in these different systems.
Right, of course. Something that I also too am nowhere near a black. So I can't 100% speak on. I don't even know half of what they go through. But something,
hmm
as you brought this up for me, which I don't know where I'm headed with it, but it's
Take
like
your time, sis.
the fetish of the black athlete. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
a lot of
You
these,
wanna go there?
I do. Like a
You wanna
lot.
go there? Okay.
Just thinking like a lot of these small towns where it's like they're big on football and they're big on this, right? You'll love that black kid because he's going to take your team to state and he's going to take your college team to where he wants to go. But where are you when things like this are happening? Now all of a sudden they're this,
Right.
they're that, they're that, and it's just like
Right.
I don't know. And even just on campus, like the fetish of this, like, oh, the black male, the black, girl, I've seen it all, especially at
Yeah.
WI. So like, it
And I think when it comes to that, Mackenzie, it's like, let's take it back to slavery, right? So, I mean, what is it, the NFL that has, I don't want to call it their auction, but I don't really know about sports like that, but they have some type of system where it literally looks like a slave auction.
right, the draft or whatever.
The
Yeah,
draft, there you go, sis. Lord help me. The draft when when
that's
it literally looks like
crazy.
a slave auction. And for as long as black people have been oppressed, our bodies have been, entertainment, our
And
bodies, the size, labor. It's always been about what we can do for somebody else.
yeah,
And when it comes to the Black athlete, they are the minority, in the world, but they're the majority on their team because everybody wants those Black bodies, like you said, to help them get these different rings and stuff. But
right,
they're still looked at as the minority on their campus.
right,
And so, how do you feel so out of place on a team that has, a lot of you, but that sport is not for you?
right. And a sport that we dominated for so long.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, even my good brother Colin Kaepernick, shout out to him, bruh.
right,
This man was in his prime of his career,
right,
and because he took a stand, has been like blacklisted. And what was it last week that the NFL had the audacity to stand in solitude for Black Lives Matter
right.
when they literally oppressed somebody nationwide for years?
That's just what we know about, God only knows
Girl,
their contract deals and I mean, who knows?
exactly.
We don't know. And I think even the hard part too is like it's such an opportunity for us and it's such an opportunity to
Get
you know
out of your,
right.
environment.
But then at the same time, once again, here comes all these other things, like you said, never forgetting the Black body and like you said, entertainment, just all these other things that
Hmm.
come along with it. So constantly we're just being pushed and pulled in both directions. Like, part of you really wants some kids to come up, please, but then at the same
Yeah,
time, then they're used, like toys for these
right.
big teams that they're not even seeing half the money that these people see. And this is coming from two people that don't know anything about
Don't know nothing about sports.
that don't know
What?
nothing about sports, but this is just my outside,
Okay, just our outside look into the inside
right. But
of this systemic oppression.
yeah, it's a lot.
Wow. Okay, Mackenzie. So let's hit on being Black in America. And let's talk about health and let's talk about the communities that have those McDonald's and don't have those fitness centers. And let's just hit on that injustice a little bit.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I will scream from the rooftops that I understand that I'm very much privileged in that way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I mean, I think we all have family and we all have other things where we clearly see it, like we're not dumb. But
right.
um, I mean, it's real. Even just going to school in the city, this is my first big city experience, and just seeing it, seeing how these kids are forced to get to school, what's on the way to eat on to school, all
Hmm.
these types of things versus like all these little, upper middle class neighborhoods I was going around when I was little, types of
Yeah,
houses I've seen kids living in. It's very different.
yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, and I think the craziest part, like what I've been seeing on media, what I've seen with my own eyes, and just like in the different communities that I've been in, is how you can be on one block and it's gentrified.
Hmm.
And we have Mom's Organic Market, and we have Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and then you literally, I mean, it's like a blink of an eye. You're like, wait a minute, where am I?
Right.
Because we got I mean, this is Philly though, but we got the corner stores.
Right.
We got the McDonald's in, like, where are like the herb gardens and where are like the fresh food and the fresh produce
Something
for these communities.
Yeah, something like I said, I will always admit when I don't know everything. I learned honestly on Twitter the other day how they put Trader Joe's in these more like whiter areas because
Mhm.
they want to keep black people out, but Trader Joe's is actually much cheaper than
Yeah. Oh, girl, I love it.
some of these, then around here we have things like we have Acme, ShopRite, things like that. Trader Joe's is
Mhm.
actually much cheaper, but I know growing up, I was like, "Oh no, we're not going to Trader Joe's." Like,
That's bougie. Yeah, that's
right.
the
But then
expensive place.
as an adult, I've been going, and I'm like, "This is cheap. Like, this is so much cheaper than your basic grocery stores." But they're not
Mhm.
putting them in black neighborhoods. Um, so
I
I
think the scariest part about all of that, Mackenzie, is like So we're talking about, our nutrition resources and what we intake into our bodies, right?
Right,
And how the Black community has hypertension and diabetes and all these things that trickle down from the type of food that we're putting into our bodies.
right. It's
And
crazy.
how can we be in control of these things?
Right. So it's like we eat what we can because it's all we have, but then when we go to get healthcare, we're not taken care of properly.
Right. Or even, I mean, from coronavirus, we saw the oversaturation of healthcare. But how about, Black people and Black communities and urban communities and the folks that are on welfare have been experiencing this oversaturation for years and years and decades.
Right.
And how long you have to wait in like an office where everybody's getting free healthcare
Right.
just to be saw. Mm,
I know. Just had to take it in. It's crazy.
wow.
It's craziness.
And I myself have been privileged to live in better communities, but it's not an earshot away from what I've seen
Right.
other people have to experience.
I'm just thinking of, obviously our clients and the clientele you work with, and
Hmm.
just watching, like you said, people working so hard. And you can only do so much in a world and in a system that simply was not created for you, simply does
Mm,
not support you, does not, it's not made for you, period. At the end of the day, it's just not. And so all those, like, I'm just thinking all the time, they're like, well, if they would just get a job and if they would just do this,
and yeah,
like,
you know what?
wouldn't we love to? But
Yeah,
you can't, so I've seen so many clients where it's just like, even if they get employment together, housing, food, school, uniforms, car, money, I mean, it's always something. It's always going to be something because there's no support. It's not for us.
yeah.
And it's crazy.
McKenzie, I literally have worked with kids under the age of 7 in after school programs in very urban communities. And these little kids know
Hmm.
that, okay, I may get in trouble or I'm considered like a bad kid, but I got to stay in this program because this is the only thing that is helping mommy because she's at work right now.
Right.
Why does innocence have to be ripped away from us like that?
Yeah. Innocence, and just like you said, I've seen kids, just the reality of, like, you're already giving things up before you've even lived, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like, you're
mhm.
giving up,
You could say that again.
like, and like I said, this is coming from a very blessed and privileged place, but just hearing a lot of kids saying, like, "Well, I'll never get it. I don't need it. It's fine."
Yeah,
Just with the
yeah,
speakers and clothes and phones, and I mean, just things like that. Even like you said, like, I have to stay in this program because my mom, like,
yeah.
it's
She's working right now, and that's all we got.
we have to give things up automatically,
Yeah.
but live in a world where we watch anyone else get whatever they want, get it handed to
Mm,
you, get what you want when you want, um, with ease. And it's not people's fault. I mean, something, yes, it is people's fault sometimes, clearly, but
yeah, learn. Yep. But
a large majority of people, they're just trying to make it in simple systems that clearly are not made for them at the end of the day, which is
for
crazy.
our very crazy for our listeners that you either could be Black or you could be educating yourself, but you don't understand what we're talking about. I'll give 2 examples, right? So I had somebody submit a video for being Black in America, and he said being Black in America is like taking a test
Mm,
and studying so hard for it, but having that answer be changed or never having the right answer, but never really having the right answer. Or there's always some type of blanket being pulled from underneath you.
uh,
And that's just like, wow,
right.
that's somebody's experience of living here,
I'm
somebody's experience of just trying to get by in life with the skin.
Right. I'm thinking of all those, like, I don't know if you've ever seen them on Twitter, but it'll be people in school and it'll be like the answer is two, and it'll be like on an online math thing or something like that. And they'll
Yeah,
enter two and it'll be like incorrect. Like, that's just what it
yeah,
makes me think of when you enter something, you're like, this is my address. What are you talking about? And it's like,
Exactly. Incorrect. And the computer's telling you like you're stupid, basically.
right.
Wow. And my second example is so like us black people going off to war
Mm,
um and being put on those front lines, and we're really working so hard and dedicating like literally blood, sweat and tears to our country, and returning home with no jobs
right,
because the white man has been put above you, the white woman has been put above you, and literally anybody else in the community has been put above you, but you literally just came back from serving your country.
right.
And we, even with that and how welfare was kind of brought forth, and when welfare was first started, this program, these black communities were told that you cannot have a two family or a two parent household
Mm,
in order to get these assistance.
right,
And mind you, your husband has, or husband, boyfriend, whoever has just came back from war, and now they have to go away from the house in order to get their family assistance.
right. And to
Um,
war that honestly none of us signed up for. So
hello.
in the beginning, now it's a
Okay, and
choice.
then so there we go. Yeah. So I mean, it's just like we're not fighting to be more than our ancestors fought to be one third of,
Right,
and literally we're just fighting to be recognized as human beings that bleed the same blood as everybody else,
right,
with these different systemic injustices corrected, because it's not only police brutality.
right.
And I mean, that is even something that has been around forever.
I know.
So, okay, McKenzie, we've talked about a lot from a therapeutic stance. What would you say to people that have shared any type of experience of being Black in America? How can they take care of themselves in this time?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest and say, obviously, as someone who's experiencing it as well, I don't have all the answers, but
Yeah,
I think a nice balance definitely between wanting to stay involved, and whatever your involvement is, as well as just doing some self care. Because not only are we dealing with this, but we are in quarantine, we are in other things. Life is hard.
right. We're all in a pandemic.
Right. So I do think it's very, very, very important to spend time educating yourself, reading, keeping up to date, because it's very important, but also just taking some time off social media or, and doing whatever self care things you have in place. And I also think, at least for me, talking has been very, very therapeutic and helpful, to, whether it be whoever your support is or whatever. But just kind of having some of those conversations, I've found in my life that, I mean, we have to live, and so sometimes
Right.
you don't want to sit at breakfast and be like, "Oh, how oppressed do you feel today?" But I mean, speak up, you know what I mean? And on whatever you've been through, how it's affecting you, what's upsetting you. I think it's very important with a safe person that you can have those conversations with,
Yeah.
um, and just express yourself. It's important that we don't keep it in all the time. I mean, unfortunately, we live it every day, but we need to talk about it.
Yeah. And I think what you said is important, Mackenzie, and thank you for giving our community permission to express things, and a permission to be hurt, and permission to emote
Right.
all of our feelings. Doesn't matter if they change every day, because a lot of times in the past, and this is no shot to All Lives Matter because they all do, but we've been silenced
Hmm.
by saying Black Lives Matter. Um, and it's not to say that Black lives and all lives don't matter, but it's just like we have literally been dying
Right.
at numbers for 401 years. And all we're saying is that our lives matter too, you know?
Right.
And so I think the shift now, and everything that's going on, is that people are accepting that, like, yes, let's stand behind this community, let's be allies because they are humans too.
Right.
But knowing that you have permission, or your voice matters too, is very important. And then I will also say finding a way to contribute, just finding a way to be heard or speak up or help in any type of way. So my last question for you, Mackenzie, is of all the things that you've seen on social media and over the days, can you just give our listeners some ways that they can contribute to this cause right now?
Hmm. Well, there's obviously protesting if that's you're able, you feel safe. Um, Signing petitions. I signed every single petition that there is on planet Earth
Hmm.
to open
Hmm.
things, to defund, to whatever. And I mean, as slow and as steady, and I mean, things are changing. Slow, but they are. Donations to so many different things. I've done all the basic, like George Floyd's memorial, Breonna Taylor. All of those are very important.
Hmm.
Um, just overall out checking yourself. I honestly think we're not talking about that enough. To me, as a black woman, I just would love for people to be checking themselves. Please check.
What is a check of the self,
Well,
Mackenzie?
realizing where you might fall short in terms of allyship, or
Hmm. Hmm.
things like that. I mean, even as a black person, I had to check myself. Like you just said, I wish we had spoken up um,
Yeah,
in school, or just like, where can I start speaking up more in my life? What can I not stand? Who needs to get out of my life? Who, this time is showing you for real, like who you can have in your life, and um, places I want to work, where I don't want to work, things like that.
right. Companies,
Huge.
franchises,
Yeah,
pockets,
and
hitting their pockets.
yeah, I've been checking myself with like how much I'm supporting, black businesses, and what can I replace in my life in any little way that just supports a black business at least once a month or so.
Yeah.
So just little ways like that, I think, are how you can give back. Been talking a lot about white privilege, but some of us black people have privilege,
Privilege as well. Yep.
yeah, privilege in who we know, privilege in our jobs, in a way. And so
Yeah.
that using what you can, money, so
Yes. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for coming on, sis.
thank
I
you.
mean, this was amazing. Before we get off, I want to take a moment of just silence for all of the lives that we've lost since day one, and everybody that has fought this fight. But okay. So thank you so much, Mackenzie. You guys, this is my sister. And definitely, like when you say you have that friend that you can console in and just like repair your soul with, this is her. So thanks for doing this with me, Mackenzie.
Yes, of course, and I'll be back, y'all.
Oh yes, okay, she's gonna be back. We'll be talking about self-esteem soon.
Yes,
Um, so you guys definitely listen out for the other podcasts that we have coming up, and the ones that have passed already.
sex on the table across the board, please.
Okay, we are on every living thing except for Pinterest. So follow us, Sex on the Table. We have good information, a lot of ways that you can help. And we got some sex toys, y'all. So when we talk about supporting a black business,
Love it.
support us.
Yes.
Period.
In the next episode, we're going to continue to create a blueprint for healthy millennial relationships. Thank you for listening to us, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at _sex on the table.